Have you ever had work done on your house? Let's say you want to add a deck. You want to get a reasonable price, so you talk to several contractors for multiple quotes. When you sit down to choose which contractor you want to select, you find there's a large price range between your quotes, as well as differences in the design and types of materials. This is where conducting a cost realism analysis becomes extremely important. FAR 15.404-1D says that cost realism analysis is the process of independently reviewing and evaluating specific elements of each offeror's proposed cost estimate to determine whether the estimated proposed cost elements are realistic for the work to be performed, reflect a clear understanding of the requirements, and are consistent with the unique methods of performance and materials described in the offeror's technical proposal. These three concerns center around how an unreasonably low price impacts both cost and performance risk for the government. On fixed price contracts, the government does not have the ability to determine a probable cost of performance to use as an adjusted amount during evaluation. The cost realism analysis involves an assessment of an offeror's low fixed price. It's often called price realism evaluation because of the fixed nature of the contract type. It determines whether the low price reflects a lack of understanding of contract requirements or risk inherent in the offeror's technical approach. The results of the analysis may be used in performance risk assessments and responsibility determinations. However, proposals shall be evaluated using the criteria in the solicitation, and the offered prices shall not be adjusted as a result of the analysis. Back to your deck construction. You will likely evaluate each quote and settle on a design and materials. You will enter into a firm fixed price contract or the equivalent in the commercial world, following the Uniform Commercial Code. Once you agree on a price, it will not change unless you and the builder agree to a change in price. So how is that different with government contracting? First, we typically use cost realism analysis on cost reimbursement contracts. In fact, conducting a cost realism analysis is mandatory on cost reimbursement contracts to determine the probable cost of the performance of the contract. This probable cost estimate must be used when determining best value when evaluating offers for cost reimbursement contracts. So, why is it mandatory to perform cost realism analysis on cost reimbursement contracts? Let's say a contractor proposes a price that seems low for the proposed technical approach. And yes, there is such a thing as too low of a price. Recall that on a cost reimbursement contract, the government will pay the contractor's allowable cost of performance, not what they proposed. While the proposed cost is what goes on the contract, under a cost reimbursement contract, we will pay the contractor's actual cost of performance up to the ceiling amount. Without a cost realism analysis, we could select an offer that results in the government paying higher actual costs than if we had awarded to an offeror with a more realistic proposed price. While it may not seem fair for a contractor's price to be altered for evaluation purposes during proposal analysis, we must protect the government's interests. We ensure an offeror did not submit an overly optimistic cost proposal to win an award, misunderstand the contract requirements, or include inconsistencies between the cost and technical volumes of the proposal. Any of these issues can result in the government paying a higher price than is reasonable. While the government and contractor may have different motivations when submitting and analyzing a contract proposal, the cost realism analysis process is used to ensure that parties arrive at an estimated or target cost that reflects their best judgment on the reasonable cost that will actually be incurred in contract performance. Although it is beyond the scope of this class to discuss this proposal analysis technique in more detail, DAU has a course dedicated to cost realism analysis that takes a much deeper look at the technique. But for now, we will ask you to return to your student workbook and continue with our focus on cost analysis.